Hey kids, it's Lio. So, remember when I said I'd be back later with a DIY on custom decals featuring stamping? It's later. Oh, and we're gonna do a reverse painted in effect too. It's kinda complex, but once you see it in action, it'll click. It's not really a basic 101 kind of thing, but once you learn how to do it, there are tons of ways you can use this. And you know what goes well with practicing a new skill? Nail art! Let's get to it. Instead of starting on my nails, I'm painting a few thick squares of top coat onto this nail mat. I've used baggies instead of the mat in the past, but nail mats are heavier, so they're less likely to wrinkle, and it's a lot less stressful trying to remove the decal without ripping it. Do I mean ripping the baggie or ripping the decal? Yes. Do this a couple hours before you want to start doing your nails. I'm using portions of the same stamp to do multiple nails, so in this case I'll only need 3 or 4 patches of top coat. At this point, I remove my previous polish, but I don't prep my nails completely because stamping means you're gonna make it rain acetone, so moisturizing is a great idea, but if you put your base coat on now, it's gonna get wrecked. So, stamp the outlines, like always, swipe, swipe, stamp, then stamp onto the dried top coat on the art pad. I'm gonna just buzz through and stamp a bunch of these patterns all at once. If you've never stamped before, my 101 stamping tutorial should be somewhere in this very video window if I can figure out how to do that, or else in the video description box. After the stamp is dry, I'll paint over the color I want for my stamp with a fine brush. A toothpick works too, but you'll want to dab at it more than drag because otherwise you may wreck the fine lines of the stamp. Wait for the color to dry, then paint it over in white to make sure the decal is opaque and the color stays true. Word of advice here. If you go with a red, you'll constantly be catching a glance of your finger out of the corner of your eye and have a quick panic attack because, oh my god, you're bleeding from your nails! Probably. So, at this point, I'm going to clean and prep my accent finger, adding a regular base coat. This is where reverse stamping comes in. You're gonna swipe, swipe, stamp, and then begin to paint in your design directly on the stamper. For this design, you don't need a second stamper, but 2 stampers means you can start painting in the next stamp while the first one dries. The drying here is a little bit weird. You don't want it to dry completely. It needs to be a little bit tacky. But if you jump the gun, the bottom layer of the design, which in this case is the stamp, will stay on the stamper. You definitely want to err on the side of too dry more than too wet. If it's too dry, you can peel everything up very carefully bit by bit and place it using clear polish as glue to hold it on. It would be a pain in the butt, but at least you can salvage the design. If it's too wet, well, you just played yourself. I'm doing multiple layers on the nail, so I'm making each flower relatively thin. I use the same stamping plate for all the stamps, so I need to move the decal around a little bit as I place it, or I'll just stack the pattern on itself. I'm also going to top coat with a stamping top coat so nothing smears, then a quick dry top coat as a little insurance. So, we have 4 more fingers on each hand to do, and I don't know about you, but my hands are kind of a hot mess right now from all the stamping polish. Time to get them cleaned, prepped, and base coated. I did a coat of nude pink and then got a little wild with a lazy ombre French effect by painting that nude and white on a makeup sponge and then dabbing it on the nail. A solid, super pale yellow for a vintage look would be amazing, but nobody makes a solid pastel yellow creme. Anyway, after that's had enough coats to get opaque and then dried, it's time for the decals. Use tweezers to peel them up off the mat because it'll make your life easier. Lift the whole decal, then carefully cut out each flower with tiny scissors. Put a little clear nail polish down on your finger, then apply the decal to your nail with an orange wood stick or your finger or one of these little plastic cuticle pusher dealies, something like that. Oh, make sure you turn it over first. Because of how we painted them, the layer that was on the nail mat needs to be at the top of the sticker. Then do a coat of top coat over everything, then a matte top coat, because if it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. And that's it! This is a really fun look for spring, but it's one of those looks which is pretty decent year-round. I tend to really like using a matte top coat for flowers in particular, but that's just personal preference. If you're into shiny flowers, go ahead, do you. I'm not your real mom, I can't tell you what to do. But I will see you next time.